A young train attendant begins her first day on the job aboard a seemingly ordinary train filled with hundreds of passengers. Some are commuting for business, while others are simply enjoying vacations with their families. However, after only 10 minutes, as the train pulls into a certain station, everything takes a dark turn. The once modern train cars become dilapidated and rusty, passengers start losing their sanity, and chaos erupts into a violent massacre. The attendant, who had been hoping for a smooth first day, is left in shock after witnessing the horrors. Following this, the story flashes back to the year 1988, where we meet young Oh Mi-sun, eagerly awaiting her birthday present. Mi-sun is patiently waiting for her father, a train conductor, to return home with her gift. As her grandmother watches TV, Mi-sun plays with her toy train set. But soon, boredom sets in, and Mi-sun tries to get her grandmother's attention. When her grandmother remains unresponsive, Mi-sun shakes her lightly, but the woman's lifeless body slumps onto the toy train, breaking it. On the TV, breaking news reveals a horrifying accident. The train that was supposed to bring Mi-sun's father home is now a mangled wreck in flames. It's then revealed that her grandmother suffered a heart attack upon hearing of her son's tragic death. We then see the actual scene of the crash. Two children, a brother and sister with one arm injured, stand in shock, gazing at their mother's lifeless body, who died while shielding them from the accident. Jump ahead 15 years. My son has now become a train stewardess, recently starting her new job. Some hold her father responsible for the crash, as he was the train's conductor. Mi-sun ignores the rumors and focuses on her duties. The train is scheduled to depart from Seoul Station to Yosu at 11:50 p.m. Among the passengers are a couple, Hee-ju and her fiancé, heading on their honeymoon, a group of teenagers investigating paranormal activities, and two schoolgirls who skip class. The train leaves the station on time. Shortly after, a couple arrives at the station, with the wife panicking that they may have missed their train. But surprisingly, at midnight, a second train arrives, and the couple boards it. Meanwhile, on the first train, the captain, Mr. Park, makes an announcement. He explains that this is the final trip to Yosu Station, and after this journey, both he and the train will retire. He also reveals that some of the coaches used on this train are the same ones from the tragic crash 15 years ago. Because of this, many believe the train to be haunted. Soon after, the schoolgirls from earlier purposely bump into Mi-sun's food trolley and steal some chocolates. Mi-sun notices but chooses to stay silent. Instead, she goes to a quiet spot and begins snacking on one of the treats herself. Her break is interrupted by the train's conductor, Jin Kyu, who invites her to a farewell party for Mr. Park. Later, the two, along with the head of staff, join the celebration, congratulating the captain on his retirement. After the party, Mr. Park returns to the control room, where he suddenly sees a girl standing on the tracks. Panicking, he pulls the brake, causing the passengers to stumble. When he goes to check the tracks, there's no one there. Meanwhile, the paranormal activity team interviews one of the passengers about his experiences on the train. The man starts by mentioning that today is the anniversary of the tragic accident from 15 years ago. He then shares that since that day, he takes the same train every year on its anniversary, as he lost his parents in the crash. The man further reveals that 3 years ago, he saw a man with a briefcase on the train, but the man vanished into thin air. The passenger leads the investigation team to the seat where the mysterious man sat. Soo-hee, one of the team members, senses an eerie presence near the seat. Soo-hee is a psychic with the ability to perceive spirits. Elsewhere in the train, Mi-sun approaches a boy named Hu-wang, who is sitting alone, drawing in his sketchbook. The boy tells her that his mother is waiting for him at the next stop. When Mi-sun looks at his drawings, she notices he has sketched passengers that aren't on the train. But before Mi-sun can take a closer look at the drawings, the boy quickly snatches the book away and tries to destroy it, forcing her to walk away. Soon after, she starts noticing strange things happening around the train. The once modern vehicle begins transforming into an old, eerie train, with spiders crawling everywhere. She also starts seeing glimpses of the spirits of those who died in the crash 15 years ago. But just as suddenly, everything returns to normal. After that, Mi-sun spots an unfamiliar stewardess and decides to follow her into the next coach. In the process, she trips and falls, but when she gets up, she finds herself back on the old train, and now the passengers have changed too. Looking back, Misun sees a terrifying figure with long hair, which immediately attacks her. She screams in terror and backs into a passenger seat, but everything quickly returns to normal, and the figure has transformed into nothing more than a black wig. Soo-hee, who witnessed the whole thing, picks up the wig and asks the passengers if it belongs to anyone. For a moment, no one responds, but then one of the arrogant schoolgirls lies and claims the wig as hers, taking it with her. Later, Misun is summoned by her supervisor, who scolds her for alarming the passengers. Before the situation escalates, conductor Jin Kyu steps in and persuades the supervisor to go easy on Misun since it's her first day on the job. Afterward, the shaken stewardess goes to rest. In the next scene, we see the second train again. The couple who boarded at midnight are still there. Jumi, the wife, is visibly frightened, as they seem to be the only ones on the train. However, when Jong-hyun looks around, he spots his old professor, Kim, from his university days. Jong-hyun approaches the professor, who is holding a briefcase. The scene then shifts back to the first train. The girl who lied about the wig heads to the bathroom and tries it on, but suddenly, she feels something tightening around her neck. As she looks around, the wig wraps itself tightly around her throat, strangling her to death. Things are getting intense. Next, the train makes a stop at a station, and through the window, Mi-sun spots the boy, Hu Wang, stepping off the train. Fearing the boy might get lost, Mi-sun quickly follows him outside, but he's already disappeared. She decides to head back to the train, but suddenly she spots her father sitting in one of the passenger seats and becomes terrified. Thankfully, Jin Kyu calls out to remind her that the train is about to leave, snapping her back to reality and prompting her to rush back on board. Meanwhile, a woman enters the bathroom for a smoke. She seems upset after her boyfriend got off at a previous station, leaving her behind. Suddenly, the lights begin to flicker, and a ghostly figure appears in front of her, attacking her. Smoking kills, quite literally in this case. The scene shifts back to the second train, where Professor Kim is chatting with another passenger, who turns out to be Mi-sun's father. He proudly shows off a music box he plans to give his daughter. The professor explains that he's traveling to Yosu to submit his dissertation, which is stored in his briefcase. At this point, we realize that Jong-hyun and Ju-mi boarded a ghost train, the very one that crashed 15 years ago. Furthermore, both Professor Kim and Mi-sun's father are spirits, unaware that they've died. Back on the first train, Jin-kyu and Mi-sun discover the body of the woman who had gone to the bathroom to smoke. Her expression is frozen in terror. Jin-kyu rushes to contact the central office, while Mi-sun checks the woman's phone, finding several unread messages from her boyfriend, warning her to get off the train immediately. It turns out he saw spirits on the train after he disembarked. Shocked, Mi-sun leaves the body behind and steps out. Suddenly, the train transforms again into the old, haunted one. Mi-sun encounters the mysterious stewardess once more, who tells her she made a mistake by working on this train. The stewardess ominously declares that they are all going to die. Horrified, Mi-sun starts shouting at the stewardess, but in reality, she's screaming at her supervisor. After this outburst, Mi-sun collapses unconscious. While unconscious, Mi-sun has a vision. She learns that the unknown stewardess, Jung Jin-suk, had worked on the train that crashed 15 years ago. During her shift, she accidentally knocked over a bottle of poison, spilling it entirely. But before Mi-sun can learn more, she wakes up. Later, she tries to explain her visions and dreams to Jin-kyu, but he is confused and doesn't understand any of it. Mi-sun decides to seek help from Soo-hee, the psychic. As they talk, Soo-hee admits that she too has sensed a strange aura ever since the train stopped at the last station. The two head to the restroom, where the woman's body still lies. Soo-hee attempts to approach the corpse, but feels an invisible force stopping her. Meanwhile, we check back in with Hee-ju and her boyfriend, the same couple from earlier, on their honeymoon. From their conversation, we learn that Hee-ju was one of the two children who survived the crash 15 years ago. At the same time, Soo-hee uncovers from old newspapers that Hu Wang, the boy Mi-sun had chased after when he got off the train, also died in the same accident 15 years ago. It's now clear that most of the passengers Mi-sun has been interacting with are spirits from the tragic crash. Elsewhere on the train, One of Soo-hee's friends is killed by the ghost of stewardess Jin-suk. Later, when Mi-sun checks on Soo-hee, she finds her lying unconscious, having been stabbed. Before her final breath, Soo-hee weakly reveals that many passengers on the train are possessed by spirits from the crash. Among the possessed are Hee-ju and her boyfriend, who are inhabited by the spirits of the two children who survived with their parents 15 years ago. Their plan is to crash the train. To make matters more complicated, the spirits themselves are unaware that they're dead and continue traveling as passengers. Realizing this, Mi-sun rushes to confront the couple, but before she can explain that they've been possessed, Hee-ju's boyfriend stabs her from behind, causing her to fall unconscious. Meanwhile, Jin-kyu struggles to get the train to stop at the next station as scheduled, and the passengers begin to panic. As Mi-sun regains consciousness, she sees her father beside her. His spirit soothes her and reveals that their train is destined to collide with the second train. After the crash, all the spirits will finally realize they are dead, and the strange occurrences will come to an end. Just then, Jin-kyu approaches her and prepares to take her back to safety. Suddenly, the lights go out, and the coach they are in turns old again. They see blood oozing out of the floor, and from there, the terrifying Jin-suk crawls out. When Jin-suk attempts to possess Mi-sun, Jin-kyu intervenes and assures her that he will always be with her. It is revealed that Jin-kyu and Jin-suk used to be in a relationship before the stewardess died in the accident. The spirit then leaves Mi-sun and slowly curls up in her former lover's arms. Meanwhile, as the lights flicker out and the glass in some coaches shatters, the spirits start to realize that they are in someone else's body. Mi-sun rushes to the control room where she finds Hee-ju and her boyfriend. The couple has killed the captain and changed the train's course, intending to cause a fatal crash with another train and kill everyone aboard. Mi-sun tries to convince Hee-ju that they've been possessed, and Hee-ju begins to have a vision. She sees that 15 years ago, she and her family were on the ill-fated train, supposedly heading for a beach vacation. In reality, her father had planned to kill them all using poison. However, his plan was thwarted when the stewardess, Jin-suk, accidentally kicked and destroyed the poison bottle. Enraged, the father dragged Jin-suk to the control room, killed her and the captain, and set the train on a collision course with another. In the present, Hee-ju's boyfriend brutally smashes Mi-sun's head against the window, knocking her out. However, Hee-ju regresses into her younger self from 15 years ago. In the next scene, Mi-sun's father's spirit enters the control room and manages to steer the train away from danger. Hee-ju's boyfriend also returns to his original self and begins comforting his sister. Shortly after, as the two trains, one natural and one haunted, begin to part, things return to normal on the original train. The ghosts fade away, the old coaches revert to their regular state, and the terrified passengers start emerging from hiding. In the control room, Mi-sun is comforted by her father, who tells her that they will soon reunite in heaven. With that, Mi-sun dies from her head injuries. The train finally stops. It's now daytime, and the disoriented passengers disembark. In the movie's final scene, night falls again, and the train for Yosu arrives at Seoul Station for its last run. We see Mi-sun on the platform once again as stewardess on this eerie, never-ending journey. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.